Hello and welcome to another episode of Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. I am meteorologist Brad Warner with a rare morning edition that we're going to do today. And so we're going to take a look at the current conditions here late this Wednesday morning and see what's going on after the storm that moved through the southern parts of Minnesota, and then take a look at the chance of snow coming up for Friday. So we start off by taking a look at the current visible satellite, and what you'll notice is not much for clouds, just some high stuff here and there all around. The only other thing to really note is you can kind of see them a little bit, but there's just a little bit of light streamers going on down here. And what that is there are still some stronger northwesterly winds down in the southern parts of Minnesota, and that on top of the snow that fell yesterday. You could see it right here on the visible satellite. Where the snow fell, basically all this area in white, it's picking up the snow on the ground, obviously, but between the winds and the freshly fallen snow, we might actually pick up a few little bands of snow actually falling down in the southern parts of Minnesota. So you might just get these short little 1-2 mile little bands that form where you might be driving through just a quick little burst of snow, and then that's about it. But other than that, we're probably expecting some drifting snow down there as well. And taking a look at the radar and the current wind conditions, nothing showing up radar-wise, but as we zoom in here down in the south, these are the gusts overlaid down here. So 35 being reported in Mankato, gusts of 35, 33 in Rochester. So again, just a little bit of drifting probably happening down in the southern parts of Minnesota after the snow that fell. Up to 8 inches, even I think I saw a report of 9 in Minneapolis. So, boy, it sure came down in sheets for a little bit down in the Twin Cities area. And there is the current road conditions down in the southern part of the state. A lot of blue and pink, and the blue is snow. The road is partially covered with ice and blowing snow, and the pink is basically ice on the roadway. So roads are not real great down there. Probably some reduced visibilities. Have seen some visibilities down around 4 or 5 miles. So nothing critical, but just probably some drifting snow that's obviously continuing to make the roadways a little bit icy down there. Here with the split screen today, we're going to have the precipitation on the left and the wind gusts on the right here. So we're starting off this afternoon. Nothing really going on, obviously, when we're talking about snowfall throughout the remainder of the day. On the wind side of it, we've got the gusty winds in eastern parts of Minnesota, and that's going to be decreasing throughout the day and going into the evening hours. Now, look at the winds really start to crank up out in western parts of South Dakota, southwest South Dakota. 45, 50 mile per hour winds starting to pick up down there out of the south as we get into the evening hours. Now, here we are coming up on midnight. Those winds continue to increase. Still nothing on the precipitation side as we get to about 6 o'clock in the morning, Thursday morning. Those winds continue to push eastward now, moving into some of these areas that picked up some of that snow. So 50 mile per hour winds, maybe even 55 around the Sisseton Hills, kind of in that James River Valley area. And then it's kind of spreading down into Sioux Falls and just making its way into southwestern parts of Minnesota. We're also picking up just a little bit of light snow, excuse me, in the northern parts of the Red River Valley. So you can see the winds kind of pushing in behind that as well. So probably as the snow does fall, you're going to be seeing some blowing and drifting and maybe some reduced visibilities as we start off that morning on Thursday morning. As we kind of get to noon on Thursday, you can see that snow quickly moves to the north and east. Meanwhile, the winds continue to spread eastward into Minnesota, 45 and 50 mile per hour winds on the southern parts of the state. So again, probably causing some drifting snow with that freshly fallen snow that fell yesterday. Winds gusting to 40, pretty much up and down much of Minnesota as we get into the afternoon hours. Now, by Thursday evening, right around 6, those winds just continue to crank up down in the south. Meanwhile, that patch of snow in the northern parts of Minnesota move off. And then we kind of get ready for this next batch of snow off into Montana. Now, notice the winds continue to really going across the Black Hills, southern Minnesota. Once we get to midnight, Thursday night, early Friday morning, kind of more of the same. And then that snow begins to move into northwestern parts of North Dakota by that time. And by 6 a.m. Friday morning begins to spread eastward. Now notice, it's actually fairly light in nature at this point. So the widespread potential for heavy snow just doesn't look to be there. More and more as these models come in, which they've been having a sort of a tough time rendering and trying to figure out what exactly or how much snow is going to fall, as well as the timing. The timing has been moved up. It's made the storm quicker, move through quicker, and as such, it doesn't allow some of that moisture to work its way into the system. So it's a quicker moving system, meaning it's going to be in and out, which doesn't allow it much time to drop snow, but it also doesn't allow enough time to draw moisture up from the south and into the system, and obviously help create that snowfall. So a couple things kind of working in our favor when it comes to snowfall, at least if you don't like snowfall. Maybe for those of you who like to go snowmobiling and snowcatting and like stuff like that, you're probably looking for snow, but not me. I would rather not. Anyway, I digress. As we move into, again, here Friday morning, those winds continuing down in the southern parts of Minnesota, really getting cranking in western parts of South Dakota as well. And then by noontime Friday afternoon, those winds now turn around out of the northwest. Actually, everything you saw here in Minnesota was all out of the south, and now we get this frontal boundary pushing eastward, and now the winds turn around out of the northwest. And then meanwhile, our snow kind of gets cranking up a little bit as it moves into Minnesota here. And we start to see a little bit more accumulation. And I'll show you that in a bit here as we kind of complete our sweep into Friday evening at 6 p.m. By that point, you can see how quickly this moves off. Most of the snow has now moved through the region. All we have left is this little bit in kind of northeastern parts of Minnesota. And meanwhile, our winds get cranked up behind that. So while it's snowing, as the snow kind of moves off to the east, we get this we get these strong northwesterly winds behind it, 30 maybe 40 miles per hour. So probably causing some blowing and likely some drifting that's going to be causing some deteriorating road conditions as this moves through on Friday. And to just kind of give you a timing of the snowfall at this point, we start off the day Friday morning with maybe an inch or two in the northwestern parts of North Dakota. By around noontime, some of that snow now beginning to accumulate a little bit further east and into Minnesota. By 6 p.m. Friday evening, you can see where a bulk of that snow kind of starts to pick up across the north and central parts of Minnesota. We're still really only looking at it 1 to 3 inches typically in between. This is what we're kind of looking at this point. And then as we can continue on and go through the night to Friday night and into Saturday morning, a little bit more gets picked up in the northeastern parts of Minnesota, where we're looking at maybe on the order of 3 to 5 inches in some of these areas up in the northeast. But as you can see, not much in the way of accumulating snow, not a big, drop here of a system. We're not looking at something that's going to be dropping 9 inches of snow, but between the snow that does fall and the winds that are going to be picking up behind it, it's probably going, like I said before, going to cause some travel headaches as you're moving around on Friday. So just keep that in mind. And just a quick look at the forecasted highs here for Wednesday. We're looking at teens to single digits across northern parts of North Dakota, 20s across the south, maybe some 30s down in the southwestern parts of South Dakota for today. For Thursday, a bit of a warm up because we do have those strong southerly winds. Now, of course, those strong winds, the warm temperatures come with a price this time of year. That's those strong southerly winds that are really ultimately driving this. But, mid to upper 50s possible down in southern parts of South Dakota. Meanwhile, teens and 20s up in the north. For Friday, of course, we get that front that begins to move through. So we're only looking at single digits to teens across North Dakota. Meanwhile, in the south, before that front actually moves through, possibly 40 degrees down in the south, even with some of that snow cover, surprisingly. And then on Saturday, Friday night, that frontal boundary continues to sweep on through, cooling the remainder of the area off. So generally teens and 20s, still in the 30s, maybe 40 down in the southwest part of South Dakota. Rebound a little bit on Sunday again, 40s in the south, teens to the north. And then Monday, back down, single digits north, 20 to 30 down in the south. So a real roller coaster this time of year. It just depends from day to day, but what we're looking at. But you can see definitely cold in the north. Meanwhile, those areas in the south that don't have any snow are going to be enjoying at least a few days of some 40-degree temperatures. And so windy conditions is really what this amounts to. Not a ton of snow coming in with this system on Friday, but unfortunately the winds is kind of what's going to be the problem, and is going to make things not real comfortable for our area, even for those of you that do warm up down in the south. I mean, 50 degrees and 50-mile-per-hour winds aren't that great either. So we'll have to deal, I guess, with a little bit with the winds. And then it does look like there's the potential for maybe another system next week. We are in a bit of an active pattern right now, so we'll have to take a look at that as we get a little bit later in the week. But yeah, unfortunately, we are in the depths of winter, and the roller coaster temperatures are upon us, but as well as the roller coaster of snow and no snow. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I am meteorologist Brad Warner, and everybody have a good day.